All right, let's jump right in. We're going to explore a really fascinating idea today. What if ancient prophecies are actually painting a picture of the world we're living in right now? It's a huge concept, and it definitely gets you thinking about where we stand today and where we might be going. So, the whole premise of the source material we're looking at is this, that certain biblical texts, especially from the New Testament, describe a future society that looks an awful lot like our own. It's a pretty bold claim, and it's definitely one that makes you want to take a closer look. And this really gets to the heart of the matter, the one big question driving this whole analysis. Are we, right now, living in what the Bible calls perilous times? Before we can even answer that, we have to figure out what that phrase actually means. The entire foundation for this conversation comes from this one verse in the book of 2 Timothy. Think about that. It's a warning written almost 2,000 years ago, and it sets the stage for a really detailed description of what these perilous times are supposed to look like. You know, the word perilous is one of those words we kind of skim over. But breaking down the original Greek is key here. It's not just a vague warning. We're talking about a time that's actively hard to bear. It's troublesome, dangerous, harsh, even savage. It paints a picture of a really challenging era where things feel like they're breaking down. Okay, so if these times are so bad, how would you even recognize them? Well, the source argues that the text doesn't leave it up to us to guess. It actually provides a very detailed sketch, a portrait, of the moral character of the people who would be living through it. And we're not talking about a short list here. The text lays out 19 distinct characteristics. 19! The source presents this almost like a cultural checklist, a way to diagnose the symptoms of the time. Let's take a look at a few of them. And this is where the source really connects those ancient words to our world today. For example, lovers of their own selves. That's defined as putting yourself at the absolute center of everything. The source links that directly to our social media world, this constant hunt for validation through selfies and posts. Then you have proud, which means needing to appear above others. Think of public figures who just can't handle being corrected. And lovers of pleasures, where pleasure and entertainment become the main goal in life, even more important than things like worship or devotion. And oh, the list keeps going. It covers a whole spectrum of behaviors. The source highlights everything from being unthankful and reckless to really serious things like being truce breakers, people who just refuse to make peace, and fierce, which in the Greek implies this sort of untamed, almost animal-like brutality. Now, all of this builds to what the source argues is the most crucial and maybe the most deceptive part of this whole picture. It's not just about moral decay, but about the spiritual state that goes hand in hand with it. This line right here just nails it. The text describes people who look religious on the outside. They have the form of godliness. They go through the motions. But on the inside, they completely deny its actual power to change who they are. So you can see the difference laid out so clearly here. The form is all about the outside stuff, showing up for rituals, saying the right things, making sure you look moral to everyone else. But the source really hammers this point home. The power is about what's happening on the inside. It's about a real transformation of your heart, a genuine holiness, and a devotion that actually changes the way you live your life. So you have to ask, what's the root cause of all this? This moral decline and this empty spirituality, where does it all come from? Well, the source material points to another biblical book, the book of Romans, to give us the fundamental diagnosis. And here's the bottom line, according to the source. All those 19 vices and that hollow religion, they're not the actual disease. They're just the symptoms. The real problem, the source says, is much deeper. It's a culture that has fundamentally turned its back on God. And when that separation happens, you start to see these inevitable consequences, which are listed here from Romans chapter 3. The source explains that in this state, things just start to unravel. No one is truly righteous, no one is really seeking God, and as a result, society itself starts to break down. Words become toxic, paths lead to destruction, and people forget what peace even looks like. This one verse is what it all boils down to. This is the ultimate diagnosis. The source argues that at the very root of everything is a simple lack of reverence for God. And when that reverence disappears, all the other moral and social guardrails, they eventually just fall apart. Okay, so that's a pretty sobering diagnosis, right? But the source doesn't just leave us there. It moves from diagnosis to prescription. It lays out a really clear call to action for people of faith who might find themselves living in a time just like this. So the response has three main parts. First, it's a call to look in the mirror, to do some serious self-examination, and make sure your own faith is the real deal. Second, it's a call to focus on discipleship that's about changing hearts, not just stuffing heads with more information. And third, and this is a tough one, it's a direct command to separate, to turn away from those who just have that empty, powerless appearance of faith. And the source wraps up this call to action with these really urgent warnings. It's a call to wake up spiritually, to be sober and vigilant, to sharpen your discernment so you can see what's really going on, and to get deeply rooted in the foundational texts of the faith. So when you put all of this together, it all builds to one final, powerful takeaway. The source argues that the biggest threat in times like these isn't necessarily what you see on the news. And there it is. This is the central message. The real danger isn't the cultural decay happening out there. It's the risk of believers themselves getting comfortable, getting complacent, and just falling asleep spiritually right in the middle of it all. Which leaves us with this final question to think about, a question that goes way beyond any single time period. After everything we've looked at from this source, what does it actually mean for any of us in any era to be truly and fully spiritually awake?